I've recently learned how to make see-through shaker ornaments on my Cricut, and I wanted to share with you how I learned how to make it. My name is Kelly, and let's get clacking. Now, of course, you can use so many different kinds of materials for this. You can use craft foam, many layers of cardstock, or even heavy chipboard if you have a little bit of that lying around. And if you want to make it nice and durable. And of course, you can use any one of your Cricut machines for this. The material that you're going to use will just change a little bit. I've even figured out a way how to make monogrammed shaker ornaments. So if you want to know how to do that, leave a comment, let me know, and maybe I'll make that video next. Now, in Cricut Design Space, we're going to get started. So you can do this the easy way, or if you don't have Cricut access, you can do it a little bit more of a hard way. If you want to make just a round shaker ornament, you can go into Images, type in Ornament, and you'll see a number of different fun shapes that you'll be able to use. We're mainly going to be looking at the shape of the outside for these types of ornaments, but you can pretty much choose any one of these. If you don't have Cricut access, you can click on Shapes, add a circle onto your canvas, duplicate that circle, and we're going to play around with the sizing a little bit. So I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger. Let's go with around 7 centimeters. And this one I'm going to make very small, around 1 centimeter or so. Next, I'm going to add in a rounded off square, and I'm going to make that a little bit smaller still. And I'm going to put these three on top of each other, click, drag, and select over them, align center horizontally. Now we have a shape that kind of looks like an ornament. So I'm going to click on Combine, and I'm going to Weld, because I know that that's the shape that I want to keep. From here, I'm going to add in another circle, and we're going to make it very small, about 0.6 centimeters or so. And I'm going to zoom in so that I can get it in the middle of this little circle. That looks about right. I'm going to select both of those layers, and I'm going to slice so that we have a hole at the top of our circle. Delete those extra parts because we don't need them. Now that we have our shaker ornament, we can get another circle, lots of circles in this one, and hover it over the middle. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so that we can have a border on the outside. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to select both of the layers and make sure that they're lined up in the middle by aligning them center again. Now, again, I'm going to use the slice feature to slice out the inside of the circle so that that is what our shape looks like. Now I'm going to delete those bits because I don't need them. This shape we're going to use for both the outer layer, so the one that's going to go on top, as well as the foam or the cardstock that you're going to use, or the heavy chipboard to layer up the shaker ornament to give it a little bit of height. Depending on which material you're going to be using in this video will depend on how many numbers of copies you're going to cut. If you're wanting to use heavy chipboard, then I would suggest having a minimum of 3 layers. So we're going to duplicate it and duplicate it again. So one of the layers will be your heavy chipboard. So I always color that to brown so that I know what color it's going to be. And then these 2 layers are going to be the front and the back of the ornament, sandwiching the heavy chipboard in the middle. So those can be cut out of any color. I'm going to make these cut out of a light blue. So I'm going to change the color. And then what we need to do is we need to cut out the acetate that we're going to use to keep all of our little bits and bobs inside our shaker. So I'm going to select these 2 and I'm going to duplicate them. And this is also a step that you can do before you have cut out the circle. And I'm going to use the contour feature to remove that inner circle that we cut out earlier. So I'm going to contour, just click on the circle, and you'll see there it removes it. So we have the same shape that we had earlier. And again, contour, just click the circle, or you can click it on the side, either way. And there we have our acetate. So we're going to change that color to, maybe let's make it a purple color. Doesn't matter what color you're going to change it to, just as long as it's a different color. If you're wanting to use foil acetate and you don't want to add any names to it or anything like that, You can cut this just exactly as you have it right now. However, if you want to take your Christmas decoration to the next level, what you can do is add a name to the ornament. So we're going to click on text. I'm going to type in my name. I'm going to choose a nice font. I pretty much always go straight to the bookmarked fonts because these are the ones I know I like. And I'm going to choose a nice Christmassy type font. So I'm going to be using the Christmas card script font, all one word. I hope that's correct. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't really see very well. I'm going to change the size and start designing where I want my name to be. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we can change the orientation a little bit, maybe make it a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to use the offset feature now for an external offset to be able to make it stand out a little bit nicely. And I'm going to click apply. Now that one I'm going to change to the color white, and this one I'm going to change to a slightly different blue so that I can cut it out of like a shimmer or a glitter type color. And if you want to add some snowflakes or things like that, you absolutely can add them on just to make it, give it a little bit of extra oomph. I've added in this little ornament, and I'm going to contour out all of these little pieces because I just want this inner circle with the snowflake. And I'm going to add another circle to it, just a little bit bigger. Center them and then slice them. So I can add an additional layer to my little shaker ornament, and you can play around with all kinds of things like that. Really take it to the next level. If you're not going to be using foam or heavy chipboard, and you're going to be cutting this out of cardstock, I would recommend adding quite a few layers to the inside just to make sure that this is going to give you some nice depth, depending on what kind of confetti you're going to use on the inside. If you want to use some polystyrene balls, then you might need quite a few layers. If you're going to be using just normal paper type confetti, then you won't need as many. I will be cutting this out of heavy chipboard, and I'm also going to be using polystyrene. And because the polystyrene balls are a little bit wider than normal, I'm going to need 2 layers of these. So I'm going to just duplicate the brown one so that I'm going to cut 2 ornaments out of my heavy chipboard. And now for the fun part where you get to save your design first of all, and click Make It to cut everything out. Once you've optimized your space in Cricut Design Space, we're going to click Continue and then set everything up. Cut all of the different pieces. Make sure to do your test cuts if you're using multiple different materials. If you're going to be using heavy chipboard, I have done a previous video on how to cut heavy chipboard with your Cricut Maker. I will leave a link right at the top of the screen for you so that you can check that video out in a new tab on how to not cut through your mats. Now these are the colors that I've chosen. So I've chosen to go for a light blue bauble, the silver acetate, so you can see it's got some nice dots on it that come through really nicely, the snowflake in a light blue, the offset in white, and my name in a darker blue so that it stands out nicely. And of course we're going to be using our heavy chipboard, so I've got an offcut of a piece that I've used previously, so I'm just going to cut it on this side and we will come back with everything cut together. I have a massive folder with a huge thing of offcuts. So instead of wasting an entire new sheet, I'm going to see if I can rather use some of my offcut pieces and not waste as much. Because each of these materials are different materials, make sure to not select Remember Material Settings and check the setting in between each material to make sure that you're getting the right pressure for each material. Use your brayer to make sure that you've got the material stuck down really well to your cutting mat, especially when you're going to be doing fine cuts. Make sure to check that your cuts have gone through before you unload your mat from the machine. And this cut might have been a little bit too detailed for this material. Absolutely can use your little scraper or spatula to lift off the intricate designs from your mat. Now that all of our pieces have been perfectly cut, we need to start with the assembly. So I'm first going to start off by removing the protective sheeting on the acetate. It protects the foil from being scratched. And then we can start prepping our little baubles. We can glue them together, or we can use some ink to ink up the sides so we don't see the little brown pieces. I'm going to be using a VersaFine clear ink, the Blue Bell, and these sponge daubers from Couture Creations. Now, I'm not sure where you'll be able to get them, and they were pretty expensive, so it's not necessarily the best thing, but they're nice because you can stick your finger in them and then use them just like that. Once that is done and your hands are thoroughly full of ink, we can start with the layering. I'm going to start with gluing these together. So I'm going to take my Dual Bond glue, which is a very nice strong glue. You want your glue to be as strong as possible. So don't use a light or a super craft glue for this. Try put on a healthy amount of glue, but not too much that it'll ooze out everywhere. Once that is done, you can just go over the ink sections again, just to make sure that everything lines up well and looks covered. Now we're going to add another layer of glue so that we can stick on our acetate. When you're placing the acetate down, try do this very carefully. You don't want to have glue getting all over the acetate because you'll be able to see some of it probably quite easily. The more cautious you are and the more careful you are this step, the better it is. I'm not quite sure if you can tell, but my mat seems to have left a little bit of a sticky residue on the acetate. So I'm going to just use an alcohol swab and clean it off before I stick it down because I want it to be perfectly clean. Going to reapply some glue as it's dried a little bit. This is one of the most important layers that you can have. So I'm trying to get an even but not overly thick layer of glue. I'm mostly just moving it around at this point, not actually putting any more glue on. And now we can place our acetate down. If you do find that you've had glue leaking on the inside a little bit, you can just clean it up with a craft knife or a weeding tool or any kind of implement. As when you add in the little shaker insides, they will end up sticking to those pieces, and that's not always what we want. Next up, we're going to add our pretty layers. So we're going to add our beautiful glitter section and place it down gently. Now this one is supposed to be a little bit hidden on the inside, so where it's lying now is perfect. And then we can add our next layer, which is the outside of the bauble. I'm keeping the texture on the outside, putting glue on the non-textured side. We can even take our inking pad and then just ink it very gently on the outside. And next we have the name that we're going to layer. Now it is of course more advisable to use a little bit of a finer tip of the glue than this. I just don't know where mine is at the moment. And now you can see where you want to place it. I think I want to keep those beautiful snowflakes shown. So I want to maybe stick it in the middle at the top. I think that'll look quite nice. And now that we're done with pretty much everything that we want to add to this, we can layer this last section. I like to try and give as much time for the glue to dry on the inside as possible, which is why I kind of do everything else first. And now lastly, we add in our little polystyrene balls that kind of look a little bit like snow. Not really, but they are quite fun to add into a little shaker. But really you can use anything here. You can use beads, you can use little dots that you've saved up, you can use your confetti that you've cut with your Cricut. There are so many different things that you can add in here. Polystyrene are just my new favorite. So I found a pack with these teeny tiny little polystyrene balls. They're in a double packet layer because we all know that this stuff gets everywhere. So be careful when you're working with it. This is also a very difficult part, is to find out how much you exactly want to have in your shaker. So what you can do is add all your bits in, hold your piece over. Now you're going to be very careful when you do this, and you can hold it up. So there, I think I might have added a little bit too much. Yeah, it's a little bit too full. So I think I'm going to take a little bit of it out. I'm happy with that amount, so I'm going to leave it like that. And now we very, very carefully glue around the outside, because this one we're not going to be able to dry as easily. My camera died just as I was placing the last one on, and I didn't notice. But that's literally all I did, was I just placed the last sheet on top there, and that is your shaker ornament. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy, it doesn't have to be anything over the top. I think it looks absolutely perfect just the way it is, and I'm so glad that you joined me. Now, if you want to know how to apply vinyl to a Christmas bauble, check this video out. Don't forget to subscribe for more Cricut videos in the future, and remember, be kind to someone today. See you soon!